right. And welcome to Black Mental Health Matters. My name is Marcus Banks Bay, and today we have a great show for you. Um, I would like to say, wherever you are presently at, we are being brought to you today by our sponsors. And our sponsors for Black Mental Health Matters um, uh, are being brought to you live from Tuancheki TV channel, United States of Africa, GPAN platforms on Twitter via at Africa Republic, at Kibalan, and on LinkedIn Live. Today we'll be discussing um, suicide prevention. And we are pleased to have the following panel members right now. Our panel members who've arrived today so far are Dr. Megan Pickens and Dr. Bruce Golding, Sister Alo. What I'm going to do is not go and butcher her name, right? In the interest of it being 6 a.m. on the West Coast, I'm going to allow for her to introduce herself. And why don't we just go with that introduction? Sister from the Black Community Coalition, can you please introduce yourself? Give us a nice little background, what brings you here today with the topic of suicide prevention. And then we'll segue into our other panelists and we'll provide a brief introduction for them as well.
So greetings, everyone. Greetings to the audience watching. Dr. Golding, happy to see you again. Yes, I'm Sister Olorontoyin, based in Germany, and I'm a psychosocial counselor, an artist, performer, as well as a activist. So my main approach has always been to empower and to work with the strength within our communities. So there are several programs which I'm involved with, some with people without undocumented migrants, undocumented workers, um, also with our young children and youth who are growing up through music, art, and performance, addressing their sense of belonging and also mental health issues.
Thank you so very much. And if you could please, just because my pronunciation, I'd like to get it right. Hit me with your name one more time.
Sister Oloruntoyin. That's a
Olorutoyin.
Yoruba name, and that means exactly the creator is worthy of honor.
Olorutoyin.
Pretty
I want to
good.
say I got it. Okay, pretty good. That means that I got a B minus. Okay. If I were to grade myself. All right. So, and again, what I like to do is just make sure that we are introducing one another properly according to our names and lens. And so, again, being that my name is Marcus Banks Bay, and I'm your host today, I also have Claire. My background is in clinical chaplaincy, clinical psychology, and the experience with grief, loss, and suicide, and that's what makes me a subject matter expert, um, and counseling individuals who have lost friends and family members to suicide. And so, though the topic itself is difficult to discuss and difficult for us to bring to our conscious awareness, it doesn't mean that we can't have a healthy discussion about it. So I just wanted to segue us into this conversation with those ideas in mind. So my co-host today is Claire. Claire, how are we doing with our network connection? Okay, no worries. She had informed me that, let's see here. Claire, how are we doing with our network connection? All right. So we're going to move forward with introducing our other panelists. Dr. Bruce Golding, broadcasting from the UK. How are you doing this morning?
Yes, I'm okay. It's afternoon in the UK, so
Oh, yeah.
greetings.
Yeah.
I was saying
Greetings.
that we've got some sunshine, so I can't complain, to be honest. It's really
Wonderful.
good to be here. A little bit about my background. Firstly, it's great to see Sister Ola Runtoyin, and just even the great work that she's doing and continues to do in the community as well. A bit about me. My background is in education, so I worked with children and families who were excluded from school. I'm also a mental health first aid trainer and a suicide first aid tutor. Um, and I'm currently working or researching into suicide literacy and compassion in educators because, you know, as a teacher, I look at my experience and think, did I get training for this? And so I'm sort of looking at how much people know about suicide and just, you know, what we can do to change that. And yeah, so that's a bit about me. I also do sign language. I'm on my level 2 at the moment. So level 3 actually. So I'm just it's not easy, but it's about breaking those barriers down. But it's great to
Absolutely.
be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bruce Golding. Um, and again, I just appreciate everyone being here and present with regards to this topic. Um, so moving forward, let me
Let me
introduce Dr. Pickens. Dr. Pickens is coming to us from Texas. Dr. Pickens, can you help us um, understand where you're coming from, what your platform is, and what your expertise is with regards to our topic today?
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Megan Pickens. I tried to put it on there so it will help with the pronunciation. Is Megan.
Right on.
I am actually in Arlington, Texas, which is outside of Dallas, Fort Worth. I am in private practice. I have a PhD in marriage and family therapy, and so my practice is a systems-based theory. I believe that any change in the
any
system
change in the
affects the
system
system.
affects the system.
So with that being said, I work with, my specialty is working with high achieving Black women. It just kind of evolved to that in my practice and their partners. So I have some men in my practice, a lot of high achieving Black women. I do some family counseling. And outside of that, I speak on various topics about that. I train other counselors. I've been a supervisor for 11 years. I actually have a supervision training after this, which is why I'll have to hop off. And one of my passions has been like affecting change when it comes to the view of mental health in the Black diaspora. So when I received this opportunity, it just like kind of fit in with everything I prayed for. So I'm just looking forward to what, you know, God is going to do with that and where he's going to take me with that, because I just feel like it's already happening. And I'm doing a lot of that in my community. I try to be very visible. I practice what I preach. I'm transparent with my clients, all of the above. And so I just think that, our community really needs this, and we need to be providing it. We need to be providing it from our perspective. If you don't know, all the theories that we work with are from, the 60s, white males, and so there are some newer theories, but I just think that we need to be the ones that write and research about us. And so in my dissertation research, I actually created a framework to work with high achieving Black women that I'm planning on fleshing out and teaching. So that's what's going on with me.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you being able to uplift the Black voice, and not just simply bring credibility, because I believe that credibility has already been brought, but validate and affirm that credibility. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My co-host Claire, she says it's raining in Uganda right now. So that just kind of affirms like the broad array of locations and cultures that we are representing right now. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce her. She's a professional Ugandan journalist, 27 years old. So, and she's been doing this for quite some time, but hitting the ground running. Very passionate about health journalism. She's the co-founder and chief operations officer of the East Africa Daily Uganda Oil and Gas Journal, Safe Mother Uganda, and co-director of Laser Target Electronics. She's a co-host of Black Mental Health Matters, and actually she came aboard today in support of this very important, difficult topic. Again, she, if you will, is a mentor with respect to Black mental health matters, because she's been here before I arrived. So really happy to have her, and can't wait for the technical matters to be resolved. All right. So moving forward, we've got Honorable Dr. David Nabari out of Ghana. Doctor, can you introduce yourself and let us know
okay,
what brings you here today?
Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm Honorable Dr. David Nabari, speaking from Ghana. Yes, I'm a mental health professional and an advocate, and I've been practicing mental health for 6 years. I've also been a health professional for 11 years. So my passion for mental health cannot be something that I look down upon as a person, but all that I do is that I try to communicate issues on mental health to the community at large. Community mental health is my specialty, because that is where we find the people, their culture, whatever problems they are facing is in the community. So I'm a community mental health expert in Ghana. Equally, I am the national president of Community Mental Health Officers Association in Ghana here. And we've been doing a lot across the country. We are almost 1,000 membership, and our job has been this. So I'm also the personal assistant to the Black Mental Health Matters project, and it's not today. We've been doing some of this series for some time now, and having you here today, marking this important day with the team, creating hope through action. But for Ghana, we are saying that so far as attempted suicide is still a criminal offense, we are calling for our stakeholders to decriminalize attempted suicide. So when we get to the discussions, I think there are some issues I will lay to bear for the world stakeholders, and I think international organizations to pick up, and let's see how best we can salvage our people from this very situation. But suicide. Today is World Suicide Prevention Day, and we expect our population to be suicide ideation free. They should have free mind. Life do challenging, but we can do better when we put our problems under our feet and move forward. Thank you very much, and I thank my co-panelists and also you, the host, for bringing me on board. God bless you, and I hope and pray that we all have a fruitful deliberation as we go into the full-blown session of our discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
And
And
what I want to do is bring in Claire, because I never like the idea of, should I say, overlaying my voice. Um, so, Claire, I would like to give you the opportunity as our co-host today to introduce yourself. Are you with us? And is your stream working? No? Okay. No worries. So, what we're going to do is segue into the next section where we kind of introduce the impact of suicide, the idea of self-harm, and statistics. We're broadcasting, reporting from different areas, and this is a way for us to kind of see what the impact is. All right. So let's bring this up. Dr. David Nabore, you spoke of Ghana's statistics, or excuse me, the impact there in Ghana. Do you have any statistics of the suicide rates there in Ghana? If not, then what we've got in front of us, I can go with that.
I can go with that. But
Yeah, I do.
That's not my voice.
Yeah, I do have some statistics, and I think this is an opportunity to also say a very big thank you, and on behalf of the President of the Republic of Ghana, all the political parties we have in Ghana, the people, the chiefs and elders we have in Ghana, the CEO of Mental Health Authority, the Minister of Health, Ghana Health Service, Christian Health Association Ghana, all mental health officers, Ghana Registered Nurses Association, all health professionals, our medical officers we have, I say a very big thank you. Yes, these very statistics are there. In Ghana, each year, over 1,500 to 1,800 deaths are recorded as a result of suicide. So when you look at the statistics, each day we lose 5 persons to suicide or by suicide. So in a day, 5 people die by suicide in Ghana, and over hundreds attempt the act. But currently, there was a statistic that Ghana Health Service has come out with. From January to June this year, we've recorded 417 attempted suicide cases across the 16 regions we have in Ghana. So this actually caused that when you do the analysis, every region recorded almost 26 cases if we want to share them equally. So this calls for an attention. Yes, so for Ghana, this has been the statistics. But there is no community, or there are most of our communities we have in Ghana that have recorded cases of suicide. And most of the data are even not recorded. So we have to work at the issue of data collection because of our laws. Yes, I am coming there now because I know we'll get there, but I think I have to also speak on why these data are not actually updated, and maybe some of us are envisaging that we could be having even more figures, because now in Ghana, if you kind of die by suicide, it is an offense, and by the law, Ghana Criminal Offences Code, Section 57, the clause 1 and 2, Yes, if you die, it is termed a first degree felony. But if you attempt and you don't die, it is a misdemeanor, and you are to be jailed for 3 years with hard labor. So the conversation around, since some of us entered the campaign 3 years ago, has been that if I have a problem and I think my life struggle should be I end it all and I couldn't, must I be put to jail? I should rather be given some support so that I come out from the problem. So this is where our conversation is. So per our laws, you are to be jailed for 3 years for attempting suicide with hard labor. Yes. And now, because of this particular hindrance, most people are not willing to come out and report that they are having these particular problems. I remember sometime we have to also use some kind of backdoor means through the police and other agencies to get to our brothers who are in difficulty. So I can say that for Ghana, also we are among the over 20 countries that suicide and attempted suicide is still criminalized. So when we get to where we want stakeholders to come in, some of us are saying that it is time we look at psychological mental health support for these people, because if somebody is dying or is about contemplating suicide, the person is having some problems, and those problems ranges from across life issues. It could be social, emotional, whatever. Culturally, all these things have some kind of underlying perspectives that prone people to contemplating suicide. So why then don't we look at how best we can help our people come out of their situation, rather than looking at the, and this law was promulgated in the 1960s. So the very provisions I am reading now, it is over 60 years old. So under normal circumstances, the law should have been retired. And that law is still being implemented as of today. But some persons, like our colonial masters who came to rule Ghana before we had independence, they have amended their laws to better serve their population. Why can't we, as a nation, also amend our laws to serve our population better? Because we know where.
Dr. Nabor. Okay. So
the young people, because the economy and a whole lot of issues can help our people out. So thank you that you are giving me the opportunity. I know when the time comes again, there are issues I want to come out with so that stakeholders will get to know what we actually want this day and moving forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And what we want to do is give everyone the opportunity to speak. As important as what you're saying, we're going to introduce another one of our panelists. And make sure that your mic here. All right. It looks like our panelists, our most recent, we had a technical out. So with the statistics, and again, thank you for sharing how much you have with the laws there in Ghana, and we have just so much to address, because again, this is a worldwide issue, especially within the African continent, because we know that a lot of those colonial systems were established upon a very restrictive and religious rule. We'll get into that later as well. And what we're going to do is then also go to some other statistics, because what we have also, Dr. Bruce Golding, can you speak to the statistics there in the UK?
Yes, I mean, currently what we know is that the rates of suicide are increasing annually. And say 2019, over 5,316 people died by suicide, and this is increasing. There's some the focus on the national strategy, the national suicide strategy in the UK is looking at males between the ages of 30 plus. It seems like there is a high rate of suicide with males, but also when we look at young people between the females between the ages of 10 to 21, there is an increase in self-harm, and that rate is going up as well, linked to suicide as well. So there are some main focus groups that the UK is sort of, I suppose, from a government perspective, it's male, white male. I mean, the thing is as well, they don't really document the ethnicity in the UK, and I think that's a difficulty, because you don't know what's going on. You can't look at any background information, or it's almost like, and I think there have been groups who have been saying that needs to change, just so that we can start looking at groups, ethnic groups, and what is actually going on. So yeah, it's challenging, especially working within, when we're looking at young people and just their experiences that they're going through. But self-harm is increasing, and I think if we look at COVID and just this situation of young people being at home, and that's impacted on their mental health. So yeah, it's on the increase.
Yeah, and we can see that. Looks like and thank you for adding that, Dr. We have Dr. Okay, I'm not going to do that again. So we have a new panelist, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself. He is out of Ghana, right? Looks like he is in transit. So do us this favor and introduce yourself, where you are broadcasting from, and what brings you to our panel today. And I will add also some details from your bio. I'm going to unmute your mic. It doesn't sound like, okay. Well, how about we go to Nana Y'all. Nana Y'all, can we have you introduce yourself? Okay, and looks like I can unmute them if they have chosen to. Okay, Nana Y'all. And Nana Y'all is choosing to mute themselves as well. Okay, and that's fine also. Dr. Pickens, as you are in Texas and the population that you serve, and I'm going to piggyback on after you go, and from my experience as well. But I'd like for you to be able to speak from your experience, any statistics that you have, and what your research or clinical training supports with regards to suicide.
So practice-wise, for my personal caseload, I do not get a whole lot of attempted suicide. I get more suicidal ideations if I do have them. But one of my students in my practice actually specializes in work with the LGBT trans community. And so she encounters that quite a bit, because there's a lot of, identity confusion and, different things like that. And because she has clients that are transitioning or want to transition, then there's like a lot of suicidality that goes with her population. So we've had a few times that we've had to refer somebody to a hospital, or she's had to write letters, for people to be off of work for FMLA because of mental health issues and wanting to keep their jobs. When I was looking at statistics for Texas, I found that there are 6 suicide deaths a day, and there's nearly about 30 hospitalizations for attempted suicide a day. And it's the 11th leading cause of death in Texans among the age group of for youths 15 to 24. They're disproportionately males, white, and then here there are a lot of them are elderly, which I thought was interesting. But it said that 60% of the suicide deaths actually occur from those 25 to 64. So the attempts are a little bit more wide, but like the success is, that 25 to 64. And so they were saying that the cost to hospitalize people for that is pretty high. And, that leads back to prevention and, making mental health care accessible to people. For our people, one of my main lines that I say to people is let's make mental health preventive, not, defensive. Like if the first time the problem comes up, let's talk about it. Let's work it out so that it does not get out of hand, so we don't get to the point of suicidality. And that's not to say that that will help 100%, but I do believe that if people carry things around a little bit less and address them earlier, then they don't end up letting things build up and kind of, being in spaces that are not healthy for them.
Absolutely. And when we bring up these statistics, when we have these disparities or perceptions, and we look at statistics from this Black lens, from this world lens, the diaspora, because we don't talk about it as much, I found we're really shocked when we find that our brothers and sisters are having these thoughts, right? Are experiencing the effects of depression, of anxiety, of sometimes what could be the effects of panic disorders or schizophrenia. And that's high on the spectrum of mental illness. But even just adjusting to these very difficult circumstances, such as COVID or isolation. And now this is all around the world, right? And what's happening is now, because we haven't been used to having these healthier conversations, we're dealing with things in isolation.
And we have to be careful too to not let the statistics fool us and think that our people are not struggling with that, because statistics can be the way that you want them to be. And so if you don't see a population as important, then you might not report on them. So we must be careful about allowing that to let us be lax and taking care of our people and the people that we care about. So and then also I wanted to point out too that I think there are different ways of attempted suicide that kind of fly under the radar for us. So like excessive drinking and drug use. Okay, so you're not doing it fast,
right?
But you're doing it slow.
Passive.
You're putting yourself in dangerous situations. I mean, just even, through sexuality, like risky behavior in those ways. So I think there are different ways that we are, screaming for help, but it's just not the traditional way that's looked at for suicidality. And, we're not focused on because, we're in Texas, so they can,
I think just on your point as well, I think just having those spaces where you can say that S word, because even when you think about religion or how someone regards their spirituality, do they feel that they can talk to someone about it and them not feeling that they're being judged?
They're being judged.
Right. And some of it can definitely hide in religion and church. That's how I actually started partnering with churches, because I'm also a big proponent that they don't have to be separate. They can be synonymous. You can pray and go to counseling and take medication. You can do all of that at the same time.
Absolutely.
And a local church reached out to me because one of their higher up leaders committed suicide. And the membership and the leadership was devastated, and they didn't know what to do with that. And so that's kind of how I ended up partnering with them, doing like grief groups, psychoeducation about depression and anxiety and all of that. And so it really tragically, the way that it happened, but it did open a door, for people to start talking about it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sister, Ol- you can see that it's not rolling off the tongue the way that I wanted to. But I think we know who I'm talking to, my Yoruba sister. Please give us some context, as we've touched on this spiritual aspect, right? But if you have any context to that, but I just want to include you in the conversation, right? Because we have yet to hear from you. So please, we'd like to hear your voice.
Yes, so I would say, for example, it's totally impossible to separate, as is done in the Eurocentric treatments, believing that one can treat the mind alone. So the context is one of also the mind, the body, and important for healing is to really understand that we are spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings having an experience in the different locations that we are. So here, for example, in Germany, we have over 9,000 suicides, but there are no statistics regarding ethnic groups, regarding regarding Black people, because they say that collecting the data is then being racist, which is in itself very, very critical. So we have here, generally, I would say the state of Black people not knowing who we are and not knowing where we belong is already in itself a big trauma, which is being processed. And this is manifest in different ways, that which we can say this lack of not belonging, of not being, of not knowing who you are, of not having a purpose, comes into what we are calling suicidal attempts. That is, people are terribly in this position where life is not worth living, or the feeling of not being able to cope. And this is the issue that we're dealing with. I would say it is not just a medical problem or a psychological problem, it's a political problem and it's a spiritual problem. And I think often this is not acknowledged. It's not acknowledged that we're living in a system which is violent, and which has perpetuated to the mental distress of Black people for centuries. So we're also dealing with ancestral trauma, we're dealing with intergenerational trauma, and we try to treat within a violent system. And this, I think, is part of the problem. So we are very honored and we're so thankful to have mental advocates, mental health professionals as we are here together today. But we are still restricted because we are trying to function and trying to heal in a violent system.
Yes.
Which actually does not allow this.
Yes.
So part of the progress that we will make is what we are doing now, that we try to organize together and we try to create alternatives and see how we can work outside of the system. And part of what we are doing here in Germany within Black Mental Health Matters is to strengthen the community. Because even when you have the feeling, hope, not knowing who you are, not feeling you can go on, there is a community that reflects something back to you. So our organizing and our being together is also a healing space. And this is something which is very essential to the well-being of all Black people, that we have a community, that we build a community where we can nurture our well-being, not just physical, spiritually, mentally, socially, in every way. Because all these elements cannot be divided into compartments as is done in the Eurocentric way of thinking. We are holistic.
We are. We are.
And like I said, this is really a crisis. You have people who have crossing the Mediterranean under terrible conditions, arriving here and not being acknowledged, not being already the journey here is full of traumatic experience. When you hear the recantations, the what people have gone through on the desert, arriving, crossing the Mediterranean, then it's really it's a tragedy that they are kept in mass accommodation centers, concentration camps called refugee camps. And there also you have people committing suicide after they have again been rejected because they have nowhere to go.
Yes.
And
Yes.
among the younger people here, we have a Black youth are growing up who have often not realized how much racist the society is. So they're used to being the single Black in the class. And at a certain point, there comes an age where they start to realize, I don't belong here and I don't have the same opportunities as the others. And this again is another trauma where we have young people, young Black people, feeling they would rather commit suicide. So those are some of the situations that we have here in Germany.
Thank you so much, sister. If I may come in, sorry for the poor connection that I had earlier on. But my name is Claire, and I've hosted some of you before, like Dr. Judith, like sister. You guys have seen me before, and yeah, I'm also Marcus's co-host today. So I wanted to ask you, sister. You talked about violence leading to trauma, then leading to suicide itself. So in this regard, do you think the communities around us, let me say the churches, the schools, do you think these people have not taken it upon themselves to ensure that they fight this kind of violence in the communities we live in so that we can live harmonious and avoid all these suicides that come along? Sister, did you hear me?
Actually, okay. The churches and the schools could play a bigger part in being aware of the responsibilities they have and also in working within the realities that they are. So, but here in Germany, you have, for example, there are there's a few churches which are doing good work, but you also have many who are totally disconnected from the reality because they try to create a space where the spiritual is being the spiritual part is not connected with the political struggles, with the daily realities that are going on. So here, for example, where they say the church has nothing to do with politics, and this is not possible because everything is political. And whatever we do in our communities, be it school, be it church, there has to be that recognition. There has to be a reflection on the impact of slavery, of colonialism, of everyday racial trauma, which is going on. It cannot be ignored. And
Okay,
unfortunately,
thank you.
a lot is not being.
Yeah, and sister, thank you. What I'd like to do is give one of our panelists, Dr. Achim Achimpong. Am I saying your name right?
He probably has a poor network connection. We should maybe wait for him later on.
Okay, and I apologize, Sister Orotuyan. I know, I'm working on it. If you could continue, please, until we get him back, so that he can share his thoughts.
Yes, so unfortunately, this is a problem with the churches and the schools, that they're disconnect to the realities, and it even goes further that some do exploit the people in distress. We also have the problem of our powers and knowledge, which are not being harnessed. We as a people, we have to use the indigenous knowledges which we have. And one is, for example, our ancestors, honoring our ancestors, knowing who they are is in itself a therapy. So it comes about knowing who my grandparents were, who my great-grandparents were, what have they done, what challenges they, what were their attitudes, what were their values. When I study my ancestors, those in my bloodline, it tells me a lot about who I am. It tells me a lot about my parents. It tells me a lot about their style of parenting. It tells me a lot about abuse in the family. And these are some of the important things that we can do, that we can start to incorporate into treatment, so that we can have healing, not only on an individual level, but also as a people. Looking back to the ancestors, our strength of so there's something very empowering when I know the stories and I know the history, my history, and I see how others have overcome challenges. There's something empowering about that.
Thank you so much, sister. This question I'm going to ask Dr. Megan and Dr. Bruce. Do you think that our leaders are out of touch with the realities of mental health today? Well, like I asked sister earlier on, we look at schools, or look at churches, or look at politicians, or look at all these other leaders that we have. Do you think they have lost reality, that even when they actually notice someone has a mental health issue, they still go and probably arrest them after trying to commit suicide, but then God saves their life? Do you think they are lacking something that they need sensitization about? We can go with you, Dr. Bruce, first.
Yes, well, I mean, as you were talking, even just the conversations, I think about the word stigma comes in mind, where people, if society deems suicide, if someone takes their life, as being such a bad thing. I hear the words committed, and I say either they died by suicide, because if we say committed, we have to think about language and how language shapes our reality. So if you're talking about committed, then it stops other people from feeling that they can actually talk about this because it's associated with a crime. So I think, we have to go back and explore language and the impact of language, and how that feeds into how the lens of how people view people that are experiencing suicide ideation. So I think with the thoughts of the connectedness or understanding, I think it starts with what are people being taught, what and how are they perceiving these individuals, because at the end of the day, situations, unexpected life events can happen to any person, which could then put them on a journey of thinking about having a thought to actually attempting. So, I think it's looking at I think for me, what stood out was the importance of language, how we need to look at language, and also stigma, in order to be able to break down those barriers. So even Dr. Megan was talking about her student who is exploring trans communities, LGBT communities, just how they are viewed in society is a child, how society treats them, puts them into another, they're even more disconnected. So if they're coming from a family, or if they're coming from our communities, how comfortable do they feel about discussing these things within the community? Will they be shunned from the community? Will they be accepted? And I think it's those things we need to be exploring as well, with regards to leaders and their connection, because how we view others makes it affects how open others can be with us as well. So that's just a few thoughts coming to mind.
Absolutely.
And to add to what Dr. Bruce Golding said, the importance of language, when you say committed versus died by, it also removes that possibility of empathy from others. People say that, they're not looking at the whole picture. And I think a lot of the problem with mental health challenges is that people are not looking at the whole person. Just as Sister Olarunthoyin, I think I said it right, or somewhere near that, stated that we are whole beings, and that that needs to be addressed. And so, and I actually, there was a comment on the screen, and it just kind of I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way. It says in Chicago, too many people didn't stop getting high during pregnancy, and the kids were born with brain damage. But let's look at the systemic racism that has happened in Chicago throughout the years. How we ended up in Chicago, because it was a safer place than the South, but there was still discrimination, there was still Jim Crow. You think about all the projects that they built in Chicago to keep us all in the same place. And the violence that's in Chicago is a result of closing those projects and just throwing everybody into the community.
Absolutely.
There was no plan. And so after years, from the 60s until the 90s, of being in these little separate worlds where they ran the world, and there were gangs and
especially shutting down the mental
Like
institutions.
Right? Exactly. And so then they just throw them out altogether with no plan. So I don't know. I don't like when people kind of generalize a population and they don't look at the things they've gone through and the struggles that they've endured. So, and I get that, slavery happened 400 years ago, but we all know it's still affecting us. So absolutely. I just don't
that generational trauma that Sister Oloruntoyin spoke of.
Exactly. Yes. It is ongoing. So, and house music. Well, you know what, I'm getting off, so I'm not even gonna be controversial. But let me just explain that I'm glad you're in Chicago, and I'm glad that racism did not have an effect on you, but it did have an effect on my family and friends and other people that I know. that
Mm.
are productive members of society and their
Hmm.
people. And
Yeah.
we need to learn how to have a little bit more empathy for our own people
It.
versus always persecuting each other and going against each other. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Dr. Pickens. Dr. Achempong, if I'm saying your name right. Are you
Yes.
how's your connection, and can you introduce yourself? Let us know a bit about you and what brings you to the conversation today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marcus.
Yes, sir.
My name is Achampong.
Achampong.
Achampong Kofi. Yes. Um, I'm a correctional forensic physician with the Ghana Prison Service, and I'm the lead clinician in the restructuring agenda of the Ghana Prison Service. And I'm also a forensic.
Okay, we might have a little bit of disruption. All right. And no worries there. We will go ahead and continue with the conversation, because again, where Dr. Pickens had left off at was this piece of sometimes we are blinded. Should I say? Let's just say we're emotionally blinded, right? We adopt this piece of individualism, this Western ideology. The collectivism is really stripped away from us, right? And we believe that we are led to believe that um, we no longer are a part of a larger community, right? And that's why understanding that this diaspora is very real. We are a piece of a larger family, and we have to see ourselves within one another, right? Otherwise, we are going to continue to be dismissive, right? And there's a humanistic element within all of us. And the moment that we start to dismiss um, another person's experience or another person's humanity, that is when we begin to, should I say, make it easy to kill, destroy, um, and do away with someone else's tribe, culture, and place within civilization. That is the first start, right? And that is what I learned being a military chaplain, right? All you
Yeah,
have to
we have to
do,
stop this lack of empathy,
yeah.
for other people's situation that is, going on. And we're so much harder on ourselves than we are on everybody else, which is,
Hmm.
equally frustrating because it's,
Hmm.
it's kind of part of that. I don't know. It's just like part of the plan, I guess, if you want to call it that. Sounds
Hmm.
conspiracy like, but it's just true.
Yeah.
We're much harder on each other than we are other groups.
Yeah, I integrated my, if you will, divine sense of being with my mental aspect. That's why um, the book that I wrote is a psycho spiritual guide, and that came out of understanding and not being dismissive of my family's mental health needs, right? Because again, what brings me to the conversation today is that my brother died by suicide, right? And I had to figure that out, right? And I had to understand what led me to have some of those thoughts as a result. Okay. And understand that that is a human condition piece of things, and normalize this idea of sometimes we have the idea of what giving up looks like. Do I want to give up right now, or do I want to continue moving, right? So this conversation is about encouraging people to not give up. You see, anybody want to add to that as we continue in the conversation?
Well, and I think too, the stigmatization, it is early for me, y'all,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
of, like just mental health issues is also a route to decrease that, because people don't feel like they have to carry things around and not say them because they're ashamed, because they'll get judged, because they feel depressed, anxious, whatever it is. And so that's part of that empathy piece. That's why I'm saying, like, empathy is important in looking at people's whole, through a whole lens and their whole experience, so that they feel safe enough to say something about that when they're feeling that way, so that they don't get to complete suicide. And I'm not saying people can always prevent it, so that's not what I'm saying, but I am slightly sure that somewhere some could be prevented if somebody were able to felt like they were able to talk to somebody they love, who would then talk them out of it and say, like, hey, or, let's go get help, or I'll listen to you, or I understand, I empathize, I love you, you're important. All the things that could be said to possibly save someone's life.
Yes, yes, and I think that that's the purpose of this. Doctor, I'm sorry. It looks like Dr. Golding. You want to? Are
Yes.
you out of here,
Oh,
Dr.
okay.
Megan?
Yes, I
Okay.
have to go so I can get ready to teach and
Okay.
train
Well,
other counselors
I was about to say you teaching and training right
that
now,
look
but
like us, So,
well, we appreciate you. We can't wait to have you back because this is a never-ending conversation. So we say good tidings and peace and blessings and honors. Thank you.
all right, good night.
Bye
Good
bye.
morning, everybody.
Good morning. Hey, it's good night for somebody too. So thank you.
It's good night here.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, I think just following on from Dr. Megan, just providing those spaces, allowing those spaces that people can talk. I think those things came out to me, and also just this self-compassion, giving, treating, being compassionate to ourselves, being kind to ourselves, should be able to allow us to afford the same compassion to someone else.
Absolutely.
And also just being able to listen. So if someone's been thoughts for so long, you being that ear can be life-changing for them, if they know that they can go to someone who's not going to judge them, who will just listen and just say, it's a blank slate, I will listen to you and support you. I think it's so important, but it's a challenge because you have to almost fight sometimes against it, your own framework that you've been brought up with, that you're not supposed to do that. But the reality is there are people, there are groups, there are individuals who just need someone to listen and to
Agreed.
talk. So
Agreed.
even in the discussion, the words listening come to mind: self-compassion and compassion for others. That we are we are one, and we can talk, but we're also individual because of our own unique experiences that
Yes.
we are going through. And I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Agreed. Agreed. Hey,
Okay,
Doctor.
thank you so much,
Oh, go ahead.
Doctor. There is something I wanted to ask to talk about. This includes myths surrounding suicide. I'm Ugandan, and here in Uganda, when someone tries to commit suicide and they succeed at it, let me say someone has hanged themselves on a rope in a certain tree. When they find the body, before actually taking it off to prepare it for burial, they first gather a number of canes and they cane that dead body like several times, saying with these reasons of, if you don't cane them, they will not come back. They will not, their body, their spirit will stay somewhere afloat, something like that, which is kind of weird. So I was wondering, how can we avoid these myths surrounding suicide so that people can understand Yes, it was wrong for someone to commit suicide, but then after they've committed it, why don't you give them the kind of rest they deserve? So I'll start with you, sister.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for that. I don't know about that practice, but I would say it has to do with us not accepting the realities of our lives as human beings. And that is, there are certain emotional responses and reactions which, because of stigma, we are not talking enough like we used to do. So in Sierra Leone, for example, we have what they call famble talk. And that is when the members of the family or communities come together and verbalize what they are feeling. Even that is a kind of rejection, of a denial, of trying to accept what has just happened. So in such a situation, it's much more healing if the community would gather together and people would express and verbalize how this has affected them. And this is also part of the stigmatization, and it's coming from the colonial, from the slavery, feeling that through violence of whipping, there can be some control over the situation. And in such a case, the person is gone, and there is still a fear that this death might impact the society in a negative way. And it does impact us all. A suicide within us impacts us all. This is why in
It
families
does.
where there
It
are
does.
suicide, it is often that others might attempt it.
Yep.
But there are healing ways, or there are other ways of dealing with the situation when this happens within us. And like you said, the honor should be given to the loved ones who have gone, who have been taken, because nobody commits suicide for no reason.
Yes.
So when somebody has committed suicide, we look at it as they have been taken.
Yes.
For prevention, let us create those communities, those spaces. Let us change, transform our clinics into places of healing and not just places of treatment. So some people who have difficulties verbalizing might come and might move their bodies. Yes, so there are all these elements: singing, chanting, dancing, moving, drumming. They were not just for entertainment, but they had also healing aspects. And then we can introduce these again.
I
Yes.
think as you were talking, it's like the words, create the conditions to talk, because it's so hard to talk when you're talking about such deep issues. It's so hard to share that. And so, the words create the conditions so that people feel that they can talk. And this is about being, I'm not saying normalize it, but we need to be able to have that conversation as a way of talking, that so that people feel that they can, if it's, create the conditions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I agree. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, Sister Claire, what you just described, I mean, just imagine what happens to the relatives watching that. You've gone to the trauma of losing a loved one, and you have to witness that. So there we see again how this perpetuates. I really like what the points that Sister has mentioned, Dr. Golding and Dr. Pickens: empathy, compassion, language. These are things which we can apply immediately.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That
And
our
I was
actions are taken from a place, from the heart, than from shame or
Mm-hmm.
guilt.
Mm-hmm. And one thing, as you all bring that up, is the family is left with a lot of those feelings
Right. Exactly.
unresolved, and no one is able to, um, is not able to um, ask those questions,
Right.
right? And get those answers. So being able to come together, being able to support one another, um, and have that conversation with individuals who've had that experience. But when you have that guilt and that shame,
Hmm.
um, and you have, say, for instance, laws that are in place that reinforce the guilt and shame,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly.
Then it isolates.
It's dysfunctional.
Yeah. And
Yes.
then the families are left in a space with a legacy, if you will, if even a superficial legacy
Hmm.
with the loved one, right?
Right.
That can change. Um, so, Claire, it looks like you had some other questions that you wanted to present.
Marcus,
Yes, sir.
hello,
Dr.
hello. Yes,
Adjembo.
Marcus.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes, yes, yes, please.
I would like to say something, and
Thank you.
sorry for
Thank you.
my
I wanted
connection.
to, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
sorry for my connection. I'm actually at work, and I've made time to come out of the largest prison in Ghana, and I'm coming to share my thoughts on this subject. I must say that there has been series of researches on criminalization of suicide, and especially in Ghana, where people who attempted committing suicide has been prosecuted and some leading to conviction. I dig down to look at the possibility of finding prisoners who are convicted as a result of attempted suicide. And apparently, for some years now, more than getting to 10 years, it seems we are not actually having people being prosecuted and convicted because of attempted suicide. The last time we had some more than 10 years ago was serving a sentence of about 6 months as a result of attempted suicide. So I think the societal, idea of suicide is now changing towards being a medical and mental condition, seeing it as a public health issue rather than, criminalizing it. And I think
Yeah.
with time, with some of these forums like this, we'll be able to bring to bear the need to decriminalize suicide in our African continent and beyond.
Yes.
So, what I also want to add to it is, if you look at the common cause of death in prisons worldwide, suicide is one of the leading cause of death in prisons,
Hmm.
and this is attributed to the fact that those in prison actually live in an enclosed environment. We normally term it as a total institution, and as a total institution, they have certain routines, and people have a lot of pressures they deal with as they are confronted with certain issues of psychological and emotional issues, which predispose them to developing one condition or the other. So, mostly in the Western world, we have a lot of suicide being the cause of death in prison. But
Hmm.
ironically, in Ghana, when you come to our prisons, suicide is something that is not actually rampant. I
Mm.
must say that even in the largest prison in Ghana, you can have someone committing suicide about 15 years ago, and we don't have such suicide. So the question is, what is minimizing this as compared to the world's ratio? And the answer, the small survey that we did, also demonstrated that the nature and the kind of our prison system and our
Mm-hmm.
culture is also a preventive mechanism for especially people in incarceration committing suicide. So, and there is also more of prison-led leadership administration, where prisoners are not actually dehumanized; they actually feel part of society. And there are, laid down procedures in terms of establishment of something we call the diagnostic system, where if you come to the prison for the first time, you don't know your whereabouts, you are actually uh, counseled. We have psychologists who will counsel you, who will try to help you to adapt to your new situation before you get reintegrated into the system. So at least certain notions, certain misconceptions about prison will actually be diffused even before you get settled in the prison. So it's these and other things has actually contributed to suicide not being one of the cause, the major cause of death in prisons in Ghana and in the sub-Saharan Africa. So I think if we have a more inclusive, humane prison system, is going to check some of these things to ameliorate any situation that will confront us. I also want to talk about the other side of the society. I am representing two societies, the society of the prison and the outside. As a mental health expert as well, I would like to also say that it is something that I come into contact with every day. And when I see people, I realize that most of the basic cause, as we know, of suicide is depression and some psychiatric
Yep.
conditions.
Yep.
People are not able to open up.
Hmm.
Our societal norms, if you come to the African traditional culture, was more of an extended family related system. But now it's becoming more of the nuclear family system where people depend on their wives, their children, or their husbands only,
Hmm.
neglecting the extended family system. So now when people have issues with their partners, they tend to deal with it themselves and they don't have the right channels to actually send their grievances for it to be really addressed.
Hmm.
So this was one issue that made us to also form something we called mental health suicide hotlines.
Good. Good. Yes. Yes. Are you frozen, brother, or are you pausing? He brings up a good point because that's something that here in the US, we have a national hotline, and in many counties and states, there are hotlines as well, where if someone is feeling um, suicidal, having thoughts of self harm, then they can uh, pick up that phone, call a 1-800 number, and talk to someone who can help them process those feelings. The other side to that is a lot of times people are reluctant to share those feelings for whatever reasons. You know, we can't speak for everybody. Excuse me. I actually worked a crisis hotline for a county, and I went into the community to provide psychiatric evaluations in the hospitals, in the jails, in homes. You know, so not only did I work the hotline, but I also went out and made assessments for individuals. It's not an entirely easy job because you're dealing with people who are actively, um, should I say, in a state of crisis. So it's a lot um, of stepping outside of how you're feeling and how you may imagine that individual to be feeling, and need to place them into a psychiatric facility. and do all that assessment and stuff. So to Dr. Golding's point, a large amount of empathetic work. So that's the space that we're in when we're talking about suicide, suicidal thoughts, and we have to understand ourselves in order to understand other people in this space, and that's what's so important about this. So I
I
wanted to
think
make that point.
I think it's good as well that we have different platforms that people can use. So if it's online, so even if you go
Yeah.
right the way back to early intervention, I sometimes
Mhm.
I do. I'm on a text counselling service, and some people, even when you encourage them to have face-to-face counselling, they say no, I prefer to text. So there are people out there who want to receive some form of support, but they fear that they
Hmm.
may not want people in the community to know. They don't want to shame the family. So
Hmm.
there's different for different community groups. There's different reasons. So I think just the idea of online, how we can encourage prevention or just early intervention,
Yeah.
those online spaces,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
also physical, like what Sister is doing as well,
Mhm.
um, make a difference.
Well, even when it comes down to the spiritual aspect of things, we can not use it as a means to shame, guilt, blame, and whatnot. There are many, um, uh, whether it be scriptural references, um, many doctrinal wisdom instructions, because as uh, a teacher um, of many disciplines, and I'll just put it that way, or a supporter of spiritual traditions, um, I believe it's important um, to help others find resilience and perseverance through their spiritual tradition, right? As opposed to shaming and saying you're selfish or you shouldn't be, or whatever the case may be. So providing those examples, or just taking that individual, if you're not, right, and guiding them to someone for that support, right? Because some people just don't have the wherewithal. So again, that's why just going to Sister Oloru
Olorum
Olorutoyin.
Toyin.
Olorutoyin. I say it so that it can roll off the tongue. It's repetition, just like Dr. Ruth's Golden is, sign language. You got to keep on doing it, right? So I go back to you because again, you have the training and you have the wherewithal, and plus Yoruba. I love the tales and the stories of the Orisha. So if you
Yes.
can speak to that, I'm sure our audience would love to hear it.
Yes, thank you. Definitely, this important of recognizing that we are all interconnected, and we are all responsible for each other. So when I talk of community and we are part of that, it means also working on ourselves, working on ourselves when there has been a suicide, and also working on ourselves to be in support should someone need our assistance, then we are there, making that commitment. Each one of us should be a pillar of support for anyone in that position. And very simple things, accepting the emotions as they are, that a sister, a brother can come and talk without having the feeling some emotions are not wanted. Getting rid of the stigma, creating safe spaces. We have to build that safety, that people are willing to talk, knowing that it's nothing to be shameful about, and doing that inner work, that inner work of love with the spirit of Oshun strong within us, and knowing that we are interconnected and that love is actually nothing is working without love. So this is very important. So I would say we should combine our ancestors, worship, honor them, know their stories, know their history in a non-judgmental way, learn from their mistakes, know your personal history, so that your heart can be open and you understand what has happened to you. What has happened to you? Why do you want to commit suicide? Be able to articulate it. In articulating it, in verbalizing it, already comes some freedom. And find that community for yourself. Start to write down the names of those who you can call on. Make a list of those who you can call on. Find them, they are there. And keep that close to your heart. That is your community, where you can go to, where you can talk in a time of crisis. And maybe it's also some strength in knowing that you are also developing and reinforcing yourself to be to others. Because we say it is all in waves, the bad times and the good times. It never will stay the same. And your good times will come too, where you can be a pillar of support to others.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Dr. Golden.
Yes.
There is something I wanted to ask before Dr. Golden comes in. Someone commented here something that is so intriguing. Today at Black Mental Health Matters, we are trying to create hope through decriminalizing suicide. And someone here commented, decriminalize, if you will hurt yourself, then you will hurt somebody else. Lock them up, and if it's you, especially KYS, I don't know what that is, but this person was actually trying to say, if you try to commit suicide, it would be right for you to get locked up in jail, because idea you're trying to hurt someone else. So what do you people think about this person? Do you think they are right to say this? Do you think something is lacking? What do you say about this comment? Dr. Goldie, maybe you could go first since you're going to speak.
Yeah. I think the first thing that came to my mind was just that the knowledge, like the emotional knowledge, or just literacy came to mind. Just having the knowledge of where that person is coming from. Sometimes we can just see things in black and white, but I think when we look at mental health and suicide, you have to switch to grey and see that it's not black and white, and it may not be. I always think, if you have not walked in someone's shoes, who are we to judge?
Yes.
Who are we to make assumptions unless you've taken the time out to find out why that person has arrived to where they are at that point? And that it's hard, because that means we have to put aside what's already in our mind and sort of think, okay, as Sister said, why are you here? What's brought you to this place? So I think people will have that shock factor. If you are attempting to take your life, then you need to be locked up, because the mindset is still under that mindset of this is a crime. And when you start to unpeel that like an onion, you will see that behind that action, there is a person, there's an individual who needs emotional and mental support.
A lot of support. Yep.
So if you're not willing to go there, then you will just probably think, that's it, they need to be locked up. But it's been, I hope that person who texted in will allow themselves to go there, because it's about vulnerability. And if someone is doing that, they need support.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're finding a release for that pain. If they're trying to, people in pain, they want the pain to go away. Emotional pain, they're finding ways to alleviate that pain, maybe through self-harm, through, and if they don't feel they can talk about it, if it's decriminalized, they don't want to shame the family. There's a whole lot of psychological tension that that individual may be going through, and it might be easy for them to say, I'm not going to say anything to my family, I'm just going to do what I do. So yeah.
Sister, would you like to say about that comment?
Yes, I didn't hear what you said because the network was a bit, it's unstable here. So I'm not missing some of the things that I was saying. But what
Sister,
occurred to me, what I thought was,
someone commented here on our platform saying decriminalize. If you will hurt yourself, then you will hurt somebody else. Lock them up, and if it is you, especially KYS, I think they were referring to someone. But idea, the point was, if someone tries to commit suicide, they should be taken to prison and locked up because they are trying not only hurt themselves but also hurt the people they are going to leave behind. Do you think this person was right to say this, or in something like in their statements? Did you
I'm
hear
not
me?
sure. I'm trying to guess what you said. It's really not
Okay.
a stable network. Did I understand
I'm
that you
sure
are
that
asking if the
I'm sure
person?
that the comment is on the screen. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. Okay.
Yes. So I was asking you to comment on the comment itself.
Yeah, I would think if you hurt yourself, then you will hurt somebody else. Lock him up. I don't know what that probably is talking about. In Germany, for example, um, attempted suicide. If there's a suspicion or a potential of self harm, then people are sectioned. So I would say to that I believe in free will. I would say also that eventually, and we see this happening all the time, eventually, if the mind is made up, if the mind and spirit is made up to commit suicide, then there's very little that we can do to prevent it. But it takes a long time before that situation arises, that a person has really determined to commit, but to it's very on that part. It takes also a bit of why we have to really move into that place of understanding, connection, empathy, love. This is where we can only operate. We have no responsibility or control over what a human being has totally decided to do. But what we can do is we can be a source of strength to reactivate and to also share together and look at the problems from different perspectives. We can be a mirror for clarity, because when there is clarity of who you are as a person, of what you are capable of, when there is the activation of your strength and power, then there is no space for suicide.
Wonderful thought. And so, as we are at the tail end of our show, what we like to do is be able to um, get your final thoughts in general, just about what we've spoken of today, in this space healing in the space of um, what you would like to leave the audience with from your professional experience, maybe even your personal space. What would you like to leave the audience with today?
Who do you want to start?
Go ahead, Dr. Bruce.
Okay. So I think really because it is World Suicide Prevention Day, it's to the refreshing thing is that suicide can be prevented, and as much as we possibly can, if we can be the ear for others, and if you don't know about how to support someone, then that's sometimes a big fear. Look for training on how to support someone. We can be active ourselves in developing our own knowledge, and be able to say, practice being able to have that conversation, because you may save someone's life. I do hope that there will be more research into our experiences of suicide ideation, because there's not enough research out there. So the Black experience regarding research, I think that needs to be explored further to help us, to identify the barriers, to identify stigma, to identify what is actually happening within our communities that is stopping us from being able to talk about these things. And yes, so I think just let's talk, and also create those conditions to allow others to talk. It is suicide prevention, and it is preventable, but early intervention is the thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Sister Olorutoyin.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so I would like to say if you are in a position making making an impact, a positive in the world we are living in. So whether if you are in a position where you have the grief, the trauma, and you're thinking of suicide, realize that it will impact not only those around you, but it also impacts the world. And the other way around, if you are in a position and somebody has mentioned that to you, also realize that you have an impact. And it's important that we start to, when we hear, when we when we are open, it means that we are allowed, those who feel that way are allowed to say, I feel like, you know, I feel like not living anymore. I feel I can't cope, you know. Listen to these thoughts and emotions and realize to some content, they are normal. We should stop being afraid of hearing such things. Because often when we are told, and we react in such a shocking way that we cannot even listen. In order to listen, which is the first step, we have to accept and thank whoever shares their emotions with us
Yes.
and remove the stigma.
Be invited.
Definitely remove the stigma and realize those who have committed suicide or who think of suicide are totally normal people, very normal people. It is normal in the case of unresolved grief issues. It is normal in the case of depression. It is normal that in this life that we are living, that people do consider suicide.
Mhm.
So, and relationships are very important. Yeah, very important. The present relationships we have, The past relationships we have, they're all very important. And let us create this space of compassion, of love, of empathy for each other. And let us find our purpose. There is a purpose, there is a special gift which we all come with, which we come to transform the world into something better. And let us have the power to discover those gifts.
Yes, good thoughts, good thoughts. So thank you, Claire. Can you give us your final thoughts and close us out for this session?
Okay. Thank you so much, Marcus, for hosting this show, and I'm very happy to have co-hosted with you. Though I came a little bit late, but I guess we did it. And people who watched us from all over the world, we thank you so much. Lots of people have commented here. Comments are so many, but we thank you. The negative ones, the positive ones, they're all welcome. It's a learning process for all of us. So we don't take it for granted to spare your time to watch our show and give your thoughts about a certain issue that we discuss about every weekend. And for today's particular show, which was World Suicide Prevention Day, I thank our guests today. Oh, we can call them panelists. Dr. Bruce, thank you. Sister, thank you. Dr. Megan was here. Thank you. Dr. David, thank you too. Whoever has contributed, thank you. Thank you, Marcus. You did a great job today. And
thank you.
to
And so
everyone else here in yeah. To everyone else, we are so excited that we were able to discuss this so deeply. As our theme said, we are creating hope through action by decriminalizing attempted suicide globally, which was something good, because ideally, when you look at the stats, we lose about 800,000 people every day to suicide, which is something which is so bad. Just imagine, every 40 seconds, someone is dying, someone is committing suicide around the world, wherever they are.
It hurts the heart.
So, which means we need to continue, spreading the word. We need to continue sensitizing so that we can reduce on the numbers and we can live longer lives, because lately our lifespan is so short. So, taking it so fast is also not a good thing. So, because taking it does not solve a problem, it actually leaves problems behind. You leave people, mourning and, in grief. So, it's better we seek guidance, maybe from God or from the people around us or from anyone who can help us. Yeah, so
Yes, your
from
life is
me,
important.
from
You are
Marcus,
needed.
I don't know. Yeah, so from me, I'm so excited about today, and I thank you for tuning in. So I don't know if Marcus, you have something to say, or I should end the show from here.
Oh,
You have something to
I
say?
just want to say, piggyback on what Claire was saying. I was inspired by this because, again, I believe that we all have purpose. We are all necessary here. The world is not complete without you. Continue to dialogue about this. Bring your thoughts to someone because you are important. Okay. We're having this show,
Yes.
but just because the show is ending, it does not mean that the conversation has to end. All right. Visit us online, Black Mental Health Matters, because you matter. And we will end the show, but the conversation continues. All right. So you all have a blessed day. Peace and honors to each and every one of you.
Okay, it's a good idea, by the way. I'm going to sleep in a few hours from now, so. And I also think sister's also going to sleep because we are just an hour ahead. So
I'm just starting
to
my
Judith
day.
Oh my word.
yeah, so to Judith, also Judith is also going to sleep a few hours from now. So
Yes,
Marcus,
yes.
good day. The
Good
rest of
day,
us,
good day, good
Okay, thank you,
evening.
Marcus.
Thank you, Dr. Bruce. Thank you, Sister Olo Rotoyen.
Toyin.
Thank you.
All right. Good day. Bye now.
Thank you.